Hello, Michigan fans. Welcome to the Wolverine247 weekend wrap-up. I'm your host, Zach Shaw, and thanks to the mostly positive support that you all showed last week, we are not canceled, and we're back with episode 2. If you're wondering what you're watching, the idea of this show is to give you a overall look at how Michigan did in any given weekend. For full insight and info, you can always visit our site at michigan.247sports.com. In case you don't remember, our show has a nice little countdown format. We have 6 numbers to know, the top 5 gifs of the week, 4 Hail Mail questions, 3 sizzling hot takes, 2 MVPs, and 1 bold prediction for next week. 97. Michigan's scoring margin through 2 games after a 37-point victory over Central Florida. That margin is second in the nation, behind only Ohio State. 7. The number of touchdowns Wilton Speight has thrown in his first 2 games as starting quarterback. He threw 4 on Saturday and is now tied for the most all-time with John Navarre in 2000 for most touchdowns thrown in the first 2 games of the season. 3. The number of touchdowns Khalid Hill has through 2 games. Khalid hadn't carried the ball since he was 10 years old, but yet has now become one of Michigan's top scoring threats because of his ability to run downhill. 4. The number of Central Florida's kicks or punts that were tipped by Michigan Wolverines. Tyree Cannell got his hand on 2 punts, while Chris Wormley got his hand on 2 field goals. 5. The number of tackles defensive end Chase Winovich had in his first career start. The man has played 3 positions in 3 seasons, but finally has a home on Michigan's dominant defensive line. 6. The yards per carry Central Florida had against Michigan. Meanwhile, the Wolverines only had 2.9 yards per carry as they were outrushed by the Knights 275 to 119. Now for the top 5 gifs of the week. Number 5, Harbaugh picks a winner. We all know about Jim Harbaugh's ability to find and land some 5-star recruits, and he found a 5-star booger in his nose with just about a minute to go in the game, and goes ahead and picks it and eats it live on TV. One more run through, we see him look both ways and go for the gold. Number 4, Rashawn Gary. Ever heard of him? The most highly touted recruit in the University of Michigan football history. Breaks through for his first career sack, coming in from way on the outside. His name's Gary, but unlike SpongeBob's pet snail, he can move. Takes down Central Florida in a hurry, very close to the end zone as well. Number 3, Speight. Hits the weights. See him dropping back, has plenty of time, and finds Amara Darboh way down by the end zone for the 43-yard score. Last season, it took a while for Jake Rudock to get the deep passes going. Wilton Speight wasting no such time this season. Number 2, Chris Wormley worms his way through on the field goal. This is his first of 2 blocks as he sneaks in there, and the captain sticks up his hand. Probably can't even see the ball, but nice job by him breaking free and getting the block. You see him very giddy with excitement at the special teams play. And number 1, De'Veon Smith goes Deve off. You see him breaking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 potential tackles before being brought down. It's a trademark of his running style and helped Michigan to 51 points on Saturday. Next up, we have Hail Mail, where we take 4 questions from our beloved readers. This isn't where they are. Where you can submit questions, of course, is michigan.247sports.com/board. We usually post something right after the game where you can fire away your questions. Our first question comes from nfox220, who asks, why did the defense seem so unprepared to deal with the scrambling quarterback against UCF? Were rushers failing to maintain their lanes, product of man coverage with defenders turning their backs? And yes, and I can add a few other things. Michigan, and obviously giving up 67 yards rushing to Central Florida's 2 quarterbacks. And yes, there are a lot of facts. I do think that the man defense that Michigan plays does make it tough. We saw DJ Durkin's defense struggled against Ohio State last season for the exact same reason. I also think that Michigan missing Brian Monet, Tackle Charlton, and Jordan Lewis, 3 guys who were not only supposed to start, but maybe even contend for some postseason awards among the conference's best, all were missing. So you're looking at a little bit less experience. Speaking of less experience, I also think that the 3 new linebackers still have a little bit to work on in regards to contain, in regards to keeping quarterbacks out of that second level. There's a lot going on, and I think if UCF scrambles for a few yards but still only puts up 14 points, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I don't think you can hit the panic button quite yet. Our next question comes from American Nomads, who asks, Do you think Don Brown's defense can stop Ohio State's offense? Mr. Nomad, I can't say for sure if it will, but I do think Michigan's defense under Don Brown can stop Ohio State's offense. Ohio State, as many of these viewers will know, runs a lot of read option style runs. They had 5 rushing touchdowns and almost 7 yards per carry against the Wolverines last year. And there's a few things that Michigan can do to stop it. Some of it's just being more talented, as they are, returning the bulk of their playmakers from last season. Improving contain is something that Michigan does need to work on, but I got to imagine by the end of November, if they haven't figured it out then Michigan has worse problems than slowing down Ohio State's offense. And some of it is just strategy, and I think that's what you mean regarding Don Brown. Not too many examples of an offense that runs like Ohio State, but one that did occur last year was Clemson. Clemson, big running team, but was held to just 112 rushing yards against Boston College last season and just 3.1 yards per carry. And this game was a blowout. Boston College really had no business being in the game, but they were able to slow down Clemson's rushing offense. We need more film as to what Don Brown's doing at Michigan, but for the time being, I have to believe that between Greg Madison seeing Ohio State do so well for so long, and between Don Brown knowing how to stop option runs, that's one of his specialties, that Michigan will be able to figure something out, at least to slow down the Buckeyes this season. Our next question comes from Michael Harden II, who asks, why Braden over Bredesen? O-line was much worse today. And Michael, I do have to disagree with you slightly when you say the O-line was much worse today. The O-line wasn't much worse on Saturday. It was tested a lot more. By my rough estimations from rewatching the game film I had Central Florida blitzing on about 31 pass plays and just under 30 rushing plays. And you're looking at 75% of the plays, they're sending 7, 8, 9 guys in on the box trying to get into Michigan's backfield, and it worked. Michigan allowed 8 tackles for loss, which is kind of unheard of against a team that was winless last season. But nonetheless, Central Florida wanted to test the offensive line, test that run game, and it paid off. However, I do think Michigan's offensive line held its own, given that Michigan scored 51 points and that the pass game was very effective. Now, as to your original question, why Braden over Bredesen? I think right now it really is just who's playing better. I have to imagine if Braden continues to struggle from his injury, and he continued to struggle during the game. He did not have a great game. Neither did Bredesen, but I have to imagine that they're going to continue to evaluate that position battle this week. I think, however, if they're about even, you go with the guy with multiple years of starting experience, because Michigan, as you saw, can't afford to have a weak spot or rookie mistakes on its offensive line as teams are starting to blitz tons and tons, just like the Knights did on Saturday. Our final question comes from PLB2234, who asks, to piggyback on the other questions and overall mood of our fan base, ... Now that the season is basically over after that devastating performance, who should I root for going forward? And this is a good question. Obviously, Michigan beating the spread, no longer going to cut it for its fans. 37-point win over Central Florida, just not enough these days after the 60-point win in week 1. So as we look toward other teams, I'll give you a few options. 1, you can switch over to Ohio State, which has the nation's best scoring margin, beating Bowling Green by 67 points and Tulsa by 45 points for a combined victory margin of 112 through 2 games. That's best in the country. Michigan is only second, so perhaps you might want to jump on that bandwagon as it begins to refill, heading toward Big Ten play. Another option is you could choose the team that Scott Frost says out-hit the Wolverines on Saturday and go root for Central Florida. They're a young team. The bandwagon is very low. They didn't win a single game last season, but if they continue to out-hit teams like Michigan and rush for almost 300 yards, which Scott Frost considered a moral victory, who knows? You might have a lot to cheer for coming up later this season. Finally, you could decide between Notre Dame, Penn State, and Rutgers fan bases as they continue to argue over which teams are their rivals and which teams deserve to be playing them, and worry a lot less about all 3 teams struggling to succeed on the field. We're cruising through our countdown now as we head toward the 3 sizzling hot takes from the weekend. Of course, if you don't know, a hot take is an opinion that is taken while it's still hot, meaning that it might be a little too quick to really digest it or to actually consume this opinion, but they're really fun, and Michigan fans love to blow things out of proportion. so we'll fly through them anyways. Number 1, run game, more like done game. Michigan's rushing offense after getting 306 yards in week 1 showed nothing of the sort, getting only 119 yards in 41 carries in week 2. Sure, Jim Harbaugh said that it was because they were stacking 9 into the box and the play action worked and Michigan threw for 328 yards in the air, but we all know that secretly Michigan's rushing attack is done for. If they can't beat the 8 to 9 guys that are in the box against Central Florida, they can't beat anybody. Hot take number 2, John Baxter who? Michigan's special teams did a nice job on Saturday getting 2 tipped field goal attempts, 2 tipped punts, also forcing a fumble on a kickoff. The only down spot was Kenny Allen dropping a punt, Kenny Allen dropping a snap, but he fell on it. Special teams already looking better than last season. Not quite numerically, but a lot of big plays there. Jabril Peppers also taking a punt return into the red zone. Look for the special teams to continue to be special as Michigan heads toward the tougher opponents. Scorching hot take number 3. Get your Heisman wax out, Wilton Speight. You're going to New York in December, baby. Speight doing a really nice job, going 25 for 37 passing for 312 yards and 4 touchdowns. No picks this time. Since that first play of the season, he's been about as perfect as you can ask for from a quarterback. I know last week we were telling Chris Evans to go to New York, but I'm changing my tune. That's what hot takes are all about. Wilton Speight going to New York. Book it. I called it right here on the Wolverine247 weekend wrap-up. But in all seriousness, Speight's footwork has really improved. He did a nice job against the blitz, and it seems like he's really exceptionally comfortable with J.U. Chess and Amara Darboh and Jake Butt. All 3 guys having big games on Saturday. I think the passing game is going to be as good as Michigan fans have seen, honestly, maybe even a decade. Wilton Speight and his 6'6" frame will be taking Michigan's passing game to new heights this season. Next up, we have our MVPs. We have 2 MVPs, both wear the jersey number 3. First, Speight. I just talked about him for a couple minutes. Literally a couple minutes ago. You can rewind in the video if you want to capture that. Can't really imagine anything that he could have done differently. I know a lot of fans were a little questionable of him being chosen over John O'Korn, who has a lot more starting experience. But Speight looking like a veteran already, and he's also looking like a pretty darn good quarterback. Next MVP, Rashawn Gary. As we mentioned, probably the most highly anticipated freshman in Michigan program history, perhaps in college football history. I mean, this guy is a household name before he even makes his first collegiate start. Still hasn't done that, but he did have a nice game on Saturday, coming off the bench, 2.5 tackles for loss, that sack that we saw earlier. Just an absolute force, and you can tell that he's already making marked improvements on Michigan's defensive line, which really didn't have that much to improve. He's making his presence known and helping Michigan continue to have one of the best defenses in the country. Finally, our one bold prediction. I know I spent the Hail Mail portion of this video telling everyone to stay calm and just trust in Michigan's defense that it can stop the quarterbacks, but I'm calling it right now. Colorado does not upset Michigan, but does keep it within 10 points and sends shivers down the spines of the Michigan fans who have already bought their college football playoff tickets. Though Colorado struggled to a 4-9 record last season, they have a lot of talent coming back. They run that spread offense that Michigan fans really hate to hate. There's no love-hate relationship there. They absolutely despise it. They have ever since Lloyd Carr was still coaching, and they have outscored Colorado State and Idaho State, albeit not the toughest competition, but 100-14 through 2 games. So this is a team that can score, knows how to win, has some confidence, and I think that they catch Michigan a little bit off guard. I do think Michigan still wins. They are the more talented team, and I don't think Harbaugh is going to be outcoached. However, I do think it's a lot closer. Right now, Michigan is favored by 20 points. I'm going to take the under on that, handsomely so. That's going to do it for the Wolverine247 weekend wrap-up. Hope you had fun. Hope you had a fun weekend, and hopefully this video will help you enjoy your work week or your school week a little bit more. If you know it all to all of your friends, show off all this cool stuff that you know. Thanks to us here at Wolverine247. You can visit our site for more information at michigan.247sports.com. We wish you a good week, and thank you for watching.